Welcome to Ali Fitness Podcast, a weekly production all about bringing health into fitness. Welcome to another podcast. So today I'm very excited to have Ciaran Hussey here with us. He took a bit of a change of lifestyle, and after experiencing a float tank at a float centre, I believe in Thailand, he felt that Hong Kong needed this. And so he opened, actually I believe it was him and his wife, opened the first float tank centre here in Hong Kong. And I'm very excited to talk to you, Ciaran, about this. And firstly, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ali.
Excellent. Now, I remember when we first met at the Float Centre, you told me that you had a bit of a life-changing experience which led you down this track. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I was working in Hong Kong in the food and beverage industry for 8 years beforehand. And it was a lot of fun at the beginning, but it became full of late nights and alcohol. And I was really in need of a change. I was looking for something different. I heard about flotation tanks on a different podcasts that I had listened to, and I looked into the benefits of them and thought this is something that we could do in Hong Kong. So I went to Thailand, went down to Bangkok to try it out, and yeah, I was hooked straight away.
And I think you mentioned that you listened to the Joe Rogan podcast, which actually got me into wanting to do the float as well. Was that correct?
Yeah, he speaks about floating as the most important tool in his life.
Yeah.
For his own mind development, how he speaks about it so passionately, it's hard to ignore it, really.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I don't think he's alone now. There's a lot of people talking about it. Firstly, I guess for our listeners who haven't experienced a float tank, how would you just basically give us a rundown of the frequently asked questions that you might get? Like, for example, how do you prepare for it? What is it? What does it look like? Do you go nude? How long does it take? All of those sorts of things. Give us a bit of a rundown.
Yeah, so for people who don't know anything about float tanks, or float therapy, what happens is you get into a big bath of warm water. It's filled with 500 kilograms of salt, so half a ton of salt. The buoyancy of the water allows you to float on top of the water. So what happens is your body folds in a neutral position, and it allows your joints, your spine, your stability muscles to decompress and relax. On top of that, the salt itself is Epsom salts, so it's magnesium sulfates. You absorb the minerals through your skin, and it has so many health benefits. Another part of this therapy is when you cut down the sensory input. When you're in there, you turn the lights off, and it's a controlled environment where there's no input for your senses, so you can't see anything or hear anything. It's taste and smell neutral. The water, the air, and your skin are heated to the same temperature. The parts of your brain that are processing data all the time, they have a chance to relax. So it has very kind of healing benefits on your brain as well.
I've heard they refer to it as REST, don't they? Restricted Environmental Stimulation Therapy.
Yes.
It sounds like it's a fairly popular REST therapy at the moment.
Yeah, rest as opposed to relaxation, it actually triggers a response in your immune system or in your nervous system. Your parasympathetic nervous system activates and it balances out. It leads to better functioning in your body. So
we'll go more deeper into the benefits and that sort of thing. Just though to recap, you go into this essentially like a big bath. A lot of people have told me they haven't tried it because they're claustrophobic. What would you say to that?
That's one of the most frequently asked questions that we get. It is an unusual environment where you're getting into water, where you're going into an enclosed space. In there, you have complete control of the environment. When claustrophobia is activated, it is when you lose control of the environment. So in there, if you feel unhappy, you can just open the door, or if you feel a little bit uncomfortable, you can leave the door wide open.
And obviously you've got access to the light too if you needed to.
And there's a light in there which you control.
In terms of swimmers versus nude, is there preference there?
Yeah, we generally recommend that you do it naked. So you will go into your own private room, you have a shower in the room, then you do the therapy in the pod in the same room, and then come out and shower afterwards. If there is swimming togs, or if you're wearing swimming togs, it's just something on your skin. It may distract you, so it's good to be in there and just be completely free.
And typically, how long would you do a float for?
We start with an hour, but we also offer 90 minutes and 2-hour floats. It seems like a long time. However, when you're in there, as soon as you kind of zone out and the time goes very quickly. So some people will fall asleep in there. Others will go into meditation states, and the time flies anyway.
Yeah, I know. I remember I did my first one. I couldn't believe it was 60 minutes. I honestly thought it was like 5 minutes. And I was like, are you sure? Can you check the watch? And I didn't believe you. I didn't think I'd got my money's worth because the time just went so quickly. But then you've said other people say the opposite. Sounds like it's a real unique experience.
It is different for everybody. 50 people could do it, and everyone could have a different experience. And then the next time they do it, if they did it a week later, they would all have a different experience again. What happens there, you're doing the same thing. What you bring there physically, how you feel physically, how you feel mentally, emotionally, that has an effect on the outcome of the float.
Okay. And so would you then say you should be in a particular state of mind before you do a float? Like, for example, if I was feeling angry one day, and would you say, well, perhaps today is not the best day to do a float? Or conversely, would you say, actually, today is the best day? Is there a state of mind where you'd recommend not to do it?
Not one where I would say you shouldn't do it. I believe that no matter what way you go in there, you will get something out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what we do have is we have an intention card in FloatOn that you can fill in before you go in and do your session.
Mm-hmm.
So what that is it allows you to set an intention and get into the right frame of mind before going into the pod. If you arrive quite stressed out and you go straight in for a session, that will have an effect on you. It's good to reset and get the most out of your session.
Yeah, actually, that's one thing that I really loved about your centre. I came in off the street, and it's on Cane Road, so it's quite a busy road. And to get there, you're pushing through a lot of people and a lot of traffic. So you're coming from this fairly stressful environment. And what I really liked was just sitting down, talking to you, running through how to, what's involved and the intention card and that sort of thing. And I really felt a lot more sort of settled and calmed after that conversation and that sit down, so that I felt that I was in a really good state of mind to go into it. And then conversely, on the way out, I just couldn't have got changed and went back on the road. I was really happy just to be able to feel comfortable when you said, look, just sit here for as long as you like, just relax. So what's the sort of thinking behind that?
In Hong Kong, as you know, people are so time sensitive. They feel like they don't have enough time, and they feel like they're so busy. And if they have any idle time, that it's a problem or there's something wrong with them. They're not achieving. In FloatOn, we really have a philosophy of getting people to really take a step back and to get into a zone where they can really just relax. So what we really believe is that we need to prepare people to give them the best chance to get the most out of their session in floating. For somebody who's never done it before, the first time you go in there, you will be a little bit surprised. No matter what you expect, it's like nothing you've done before. We want to minimize the surprise or minimize the wonder with it and really give people the tools. And afterwards, people generally come out feeling very different to when they got in. It's good to allow some time to decompress, see whatever came up for you, and maybe make some notes about it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't have so much of an expectation. And what was interesting, it's almost like you need to be comfortable with doing nothing. Do you find that's probably the hardest thing that people need to get? Like, they're like, how do I prepare? What do I do? And it's like, no, you don't actually do anything.
Yeah, especially in this town, people are not comfortable doing nothing. And the first time you do it, it is a feeling out process. Often people will not get the most out of their first float because of the anxiousness or because they're not comfortable just being, not comfortable being with themselves. And really, if we can't be with ourselves, like, what is that saying? So the next time, in subsequent floats, each time you do it, you kind of get more comfortable, layers of tension just kind of release, and you get a little bit more self-aware each time.
It reminds me a bit of meditation, but I find the combination of the two really, really work well. Do you have many people that come in and do a meditation while they're in there?
Absolutely, yeah. Anybody with meditation experience, this is a perfect place for it. Kind of sensory input is cut out. It's just you alone. There is no distractions. So if you want to meditate, you can really get into it. But even for people who don't meditate, what happens in the tank is your brain waves will naturally slow down, and you will naturally go into states of meditation, states of deep meditation. you can get the benefits of that without even having a practice. Obviously, for people who have a practice, it's like meditation 2.0.
That's great. A lot of our listeners, very much sort of A-type personalities, fairly fit into a lot of quite the opposite, like moving and doing, and then find that meditation's quite difficult. In a way, they don't need to worry about if they don't have a meditation practice, they can use a float as a meditation to a certain extent.
Exactly. You can get the benefits of it without putting in those hours and hours and hours of effort.
So obviously that's a major benefit to floating. What are the other benefits? I know there are a lot, but off the top of your head, what would you say the benefits are?
But physically, you should get pain relief if you have any pain, a reduction in inflammation. So this is due to the Epsom salts. Reduction in inflammation, a reduction in blood pressure. Mentally, there's been hundreds of studies done where they've shown a reduction in stress, anxiety, depression, an increase in positivity, in energy, in creativity, in focus. So really people that are coming and doing it regularly they're seeing better focus in their lives. We get a lot of pregnant women in also because they are, especially in the third trimester where they go through an uncomfortable phase, where they have trouble sleeping, where they have trouble just being with their body, and they can lie on their back in the float tank and just get that pain relief.
And take the weight off as well.
And take the weight off, exactly.
From an athlete point of view, you mentioned pain relief and the Epsom salts and that sort of thing. For recovery, are there many studies about how recovery is helped for athletes through floating?
There's many studies on just how it can physically help you. You do absorb lots of magnesium from the water.
So that's got to help in itself.
Exactly, yeah.
Because I know from a personal point of view, I had a hard training session and then the following day, actually it may have even been that afternoon, had a float. The next day, I felt like a new person. My muscles felt totally relaxed, way more so than if I had have had an Epsom salt bath, which I often do. It was just like tenfold. So for me, that was an amazing recovery. I couldn't recommend it more for an athlete that just wants to recover quickly.
Top athletes in all forms of sport are using it now. Top NBA athletes, NFL, rugby athletes, they're all using this.
Right.
CrossFit. Not only are they using it for their physical recovery, but also for their mental preparation. They use it for visualization, for the mental, just to get that mental edge. So Steph Curry is one of the biggest users of it. He's a big proponent of it.
I found a site called fadeawayfloat.com and I'll link to that in the show note. There were at least 60 scientific experiments that they've done that all show the benefits of floating, which I thought was amazing. And like you said, it was talking about alleviation of pain, especially fibromyalgia. They were talking about rheumatoid arthritis being a great therapy, mental therapy. There were so many different benefits, proven scientific studies. So I'll link to that in the show notes.
It's also being used on cancer patients who are going through chemotherapy.
Right.
And they can get good pain relief from that as well. So it's not just your muscles, your joints, but really it gives you overall relief.
I wanted to ask you whether you were familiar with Dr. Justin Feinstein's work on the benefits of anxiety with float tanks. I know he's done some studies at I think it was the 2015 float tank conference. He came out with some profound studies. Are you familiar with that at all?
He did a presentation last year at the Float conference where he did come out and let everybody know what was going on with his study. And what they do is they do an MRI scan before and after the tank, and they measure the brain inside the tank also. And what they found is that the two parts of the brain that fire up in the tank are the exact parts of the brain that fire up when you take anti-anxiety medication. In the future, float tanks will be used to treat stress and anxiety by the medical profession. This will be accepted as a medical treatment, I suppose.
Wow, that's amazing. I'll link to that in the show notes. I think there was even a YouTube video with him talking about that.
That's right, yeah.
Excellent. That in itself is amazing if we can use this type of therapy instead of drugs.
Exactly.
In what circumstance would you say don't do a float? Is there any sort of particular injury that you might have or any condition that you would recommend against it?
Because it's so high in salt, if you have any cuts or any grazes, it will hurt them. Mm-hmm. So if it is small, what we would do is put Vaseline on to cover that area. But if you have any open wounds or anything like that, you shouldn't float. If your blood pressure is very low, you should consult your doctor first.
Because you might faint? Is that the reason behind it? Or
Yeah, because it actually, most people in stressful environments have a higher blood pressure. So it is very good for dropping that. I'm not sure actually. I'm not sure exactly why.
So other than cuts then and potentially low blood pressure, there aren't really many other reasons why you shouldn't float?
No, it is non-intrusive. It's not medicine. It's just a natural environment where you can zone out, enter into different states.
Yeah, one of the benefits I really found too was not only did I learn to be comfortable with doing nothing, but I found that I actually became way more productive after that without even trying. So it was almost like you have to slow down to fasten up. I felt after the float that I had some type of high, and I know it's referred to as the floater's high, but I felt as good, to be honest, I felt better than if I did a really hard workout and got that endorphin rush that athletes get. Have you experienced the floater's high yourself, and how often do people experience that?
In most places, they would call it the post-float glow.
Okay.
So people come out just feeling, just maybe it could be euphoric, it could be very energetic, but yeah, just kind of feeling very, very relaxed. You mentioned before about how you felt more focused or you got more done afterwards. That is exactly why you would do meditation. It's about mental flossing. It's about sharpening your axe so that you can really get down to the things you want to do later.
I keep going on about your float centre, FloatOn, because of the experience I had, not just in the float itself, but the whole environment feeling that I got before and after the float as well. I assume float centres differ quite a lot in terms of the actual float tanks they use, and potentially in what they offer or how they treat their clients. In your experience, what would you say is the difference between different float centres, and why should we go to FloatOn?
It is a relatively new industry. Floating's been around since the 50s and 60s where it was developed, and then it became big in the 80s, but probably in the last 5 years, the industry has grown 3 or 4 times around the world. They're popping up in cities around the world, so people are still finding their feet as to what the best way to give people the service that they want. What we are very big on and what we really believe in is that we want each client to get the most out of their session. And it doesn't just happen inside the pod. It goes from the preparation beforehand, from explaining everything to them so that they feel comfortable, to afterwards, where we allow the space for them to just be there, where we have a card there for them to really reflect on what has come up so that they can learn from it and grow in there.
And I think you're not giving yourself justice either, because I felt like I had my own personal counsellor almost, because you were just there, just so open and so vulnerable and willing to share your story, which really just made the atmosphere of the tank. And I noticed that you were just doing that with all the clients. Before I went in, you were with someone else, and then as I was leaving, you were with someone else. To me, that I'm sure that all the other centres don't offer that type of experience.
That's a personal thing from me. I'm very interested in people and interested in what they can get out of it and in sharing about my experience, so that they can really learn from my experience too.
You obviously got a lot of regular clients. If you were to give us the absolute optimal way to benefit from a float tank, how often should I be going?
To get the most out of it, I would recommend doing it twice per week. Now, we have people doing it once a week. We have people doing it once a month. But it is the people who are coming very regularly that are really seeing that change, seeing that increase in focus, seeing that increase in energy and positivity.
And so do you make it affordable? Because I know float centres are typically quite expensive.
Yeah.
And I assume they're not claimable on most insurances.
It's not claimable on insurance yet anyway. To be a member, it works out around $300 per float. That's to really encourage people to do it regularly.
Wow, so 300 Hong Kong dollars per float.
Yeah.
Okay, because I think a one-off is over 600, isn't it, to do a one-off?
That's right, yeah. One-off is $630 and the membership is $630 per month, and you receive 2 floats for that. And then any additional floats are $300.
300, so it's about the same price as a Chinese massage.
Yeah, and it really is, it offers so much more than a massage. It offers so much more than the physical.
I felt like I'd already had a massage and a meditation and a relaxation. It was almost like 5 in 1 or something, even just after the first time that I did it. I totally agree with you.
People that are doing it are people who want to evolve. They want to achieve more. They have goals. They want to be more effective in their life. If that resonates with you, then this is worth trying.
For our listeners at FloatOn, is there any discount or anything you could potentially offer them if they mention Ali Fitness?
Well, yeah. So if they do mention Ali Fitness, we are offering 15% off their first purchase.
Excellent. Okay, perfect. Listeners out there, I totally recommend it. It's something that I would do daily if I could afford it. I agree with you too that if you can do it twice a week, it makes a massive difference. It's like if you can meditate just a little bit every day, it makes a massive difference. Thank you so much for your information about your experience as well and float tanks in general. And before I let you go, Ciaran, I wanted to ask you a personal question, absolutely nothing to do with floating, but something that we asked all our guests. Sort of bizarre question, but the question is, do you have a tattoo?
I do not have any tattoos.
You don't? Okay. Firstly, why not? If you were to get one, I know I'm putting you on the spot, what would you get?
Okay. Well, why I don't have it, I didn't want to commit to something on my body for the rest of my life. And if I was to get one, I'm not sure what it would be, but it would definitely be something symbolic to do with my daughter or to do with my family. That's what's really important to me.
Okay.
I have an 11-month-old daughter, so.
Yes, you're a new dad, and I'm not surprised. It's something to do with your daughter or your wife or your family.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you for sharing today, and I look forward to my next float.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ali.
Excellent, thank you. For all the resources and show notes from today's episode, please go to www.ali.fitness. If you liked today's episode, please show your appreciation by going to iTunes, give us a 5-star review and subscribe.